Charlie. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Charlie, I missed the beginning. We do outline cartilage.
Yes.
Okay. All of it?
Yes. The,
Okay.
the different types: fibrocartilage, elastic cartilage, and hyaline cartilage.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie,
Yes.
so for the email that you sent asking for the preferred email, I never got that email.
Okay. There could be a lot
And
of
I
reasons.
just checked. Yeah,
Huh?
and I just checked to make and I just checked to double check to see if I missed it. I didn't get that email.
Well, here's what happened. Here's what could have happened, and it doesn't matter. Uh, uh, it, it went to draft. It went to my spam. No, it didn't, because nothing goes to my spam. It went to my school, and it didn't get forwarded. That happens once in a while. There's lots of reasons. Uh, okay, so I'm not saying you didn't send it. I don't have it. That's okay. And I do have an email address for you, however. I have an email address for everybody. I had 5 people, no email address. I looked them up. There's lots of ways to look up things like that. Okay. But I don't know if I got your preferred email address. Okay.
I just use Outlook if that helps.
You use Outlook?
Yeah, I use Outlook for school.
Okay. Then do you want to use Outlook for me?
Yes, please.
Oh, no, then you send me a message from Outlook. Okay.
Yeah. I
Uh,
sent my outline to you through Outlook.
and did I acknowledge it? Did
Yeah.
I?
Mhm.
Oh, I did. Then I got it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we should be fine. If I
Okay.
don't, if I ever write you and I use the wrong address, then I still have it incorrect in my address book, and I want to change it. It's a simple thing. Okay.
Okay. I'll
Uh,
send you a reminder.
yeah. The reason
Just in
for
case.
asking you for a preferred address, I think some people think it's like, oh, that's my privacy. Uh, Hell, your email address is not private. You know that. How much spam do you get? I get tons of it. Have to toss it away. I ask you your email preferred address so that in the middle of a test, when there is a mistake in the test, the pictures aren't loading in the test. Something's going wrong. I can email everybody at once. It'll get right to where they want to be, have it, not off at the school someplace. Okay,
Thank
but
you.
okay. Anything else? Okay, let's see. See, I do a lot of uh, calming, if I can call it that, for when students have problems. Problems are something we just don't need. We got too much to learn. I like to get everything correct. I like to get
Professor?
everything just. I, you I'm a real believer in justice, and lots of times you can't have it. It just infuriates you. But if you can have justice, it just feels better. Justice in an assignment, justice in the class itself, justice in a fair test. It's got to be just, or I'll go ballistic if it's not. I remember once I had bought a brand new Toyota truck. I've bought probably 7 of those in my life. I don't know why I stuck with Toyota, except they always ran. And I went home to my house, which was in Majeska Canyon. You don't know where that is? It's one of the last rural parts of Orange County. Very rural, but unfortunately, got too many yuppies there now. And so I didn't like that. Didn't feel it was just. So I moved out. But while I was there, it was beautiful. Stream in the backyard, trees everywhere, just a forest. So here I am at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I can't get to sleep. I'm thinking about my new truck sitting out on the driveway, and I want to drive my new truck. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, that's what I do. I get up, drive my new truck, and I go on out. Moon's out. It's really bright. Turn off my headlights because I don't need them, and I go down the road towards El Toro. Could have gone the other way, but it was El Toro. And El Toro is 8 miles away on a windy, windy road that doesn't exist anymore. And half the way down it, 4 miles down, there's one big turn. So they put in a light, an overhead light there. And I'm pulling up to the turn, and I can get to the light, and there, propped up on the rock, is a beat up old car. One wheel's up, three wheels are down. It's obviously got a flat tire and somebody's taken the wheel off. And I'm looking at it as I get closer in the darkness, and I'm thinking, that car looks like it's from Arizona. I have a thing about Arizona. I got closer to it and making the turn, and yes, indeed, the license plate says Grand Canyon State. Grand Canyon State. Okay, it's from Arizona. Well, what else could it be to be a junker like that one? It stuck out here at 1 in the morning. Uh, I know what happens to cars that get stuck out in Majeska Canyon at 1 in the morning. They get shot up uh, in short order. But this one was still okay. I made the turn, finished my route to El Toro, and there we go. There's two guys. They've got a tire. It's their tire, obviously. They've got their fists up and thumb out to hitchhike. And they want to go into town with their tire, which I could easily put in the back of my truck. Only trouble is, these guys were scary. These were the scariest looking dudes you ever want to run into at 1 or 2 in the morning. Uh, it, they were psycho. I mean, if anything. So would you stop? Would you stop and give them a ride, thinking maybe that they'll just want to trade the tire for the truck?
I would not stop.
You would not stop. Anybody else make a decision? You can't figure it out?
I wouldn't stop. No way.
Okay. I mean, these were scraggly looking guys. You never saw the movie California with a K with Brad Pitt. Oh man, he was scary in those days. Maybe scary anyway. So I thought about it for a while, and then I just at the last minute, I got past them just barely. I decided to stop. I can't believe I decided to stop, the stupidest thing in the world. And I put the brake on. But by that time, they had already decided I was not going to stop, and their fists concealed rocks, and they threw them at my car. A brand new car. Just a few hours old. Now should I stop and get out and tell them what for? Now would you stop?
No.
So somebody sounds the voice of reason here. Of course you're not going to stop. You know, they were ready to bash your head in to begin with. Now what are they going to do? I mean, if you're a martial artist, maybe you can do something with these guys. But they look like they were high on something, and nothing would affect them. So I drove into El Toro. I went to the Alpha Beta store. There was Alpha Beta then. I bought something. The premise was to drive the car. And I turned back and I went the other way on the road, 8 miles going back. And just as I made the turn out of Alpha Beta, there they are across the street. Somebody had given them a ride and lived. So somebody must have had a very old car or something like that. They saw me, they gave me the one finger salute, and I did the same, but it didn't make me feel good. I felt like a coward. I felt bad. I felt this was not justice, you know. I'd been feeling that way all the way after they had thrown rocks at my car. I was a coward. I didn't get out and do anything about it. Yeah, I didn't get out and die. Well, I kept on fuming. They had another mile to go down the road to get to the AM/PM station, so they were going the opposite direction. I got back to the turn point, 4 miles back, and there's that awful goddamn car. I can't stand it. I can't stand those guys. What am I gonna do? So I pulled off the road and got out, and I let the air out of all the rest of their tires, and I
Wait,
left.
I'm sorry. What did you do?
I let the air out of all the rest of their tires.
That's awesome.
It worked. It made me feel good. I'm sure it made them feel terrible. They had one bad tire, now they have three. Okay. So, justice. Uh, I'll be on the lookout for it from me, and we'll uh, try to give it to you. Okay, let's go on with our stuff then, unless there's a last question. Let's see, I've got all that done. Yes. Oh, I won't be able to show you these later. I'm going to use these in showing you some of the bones. It was, and all it is the name of the bone and the figure in the book where it can be found. If you've already done this and typed it out, great. Printed it out. You don't have to type it. It's the vertebra ribs and the sternum. However, you don't need to worry if you don't have it at all right now, because I'll simply call out the name of the bone and I'll tell you the figure in the book where it's at, right off of here. Okay, that should help you a little bit later. Okay, I did call up IT, asked them what happened with my screen share. They said they didn't know. Well, that was helpful. So I came home, worked on what some of your suggestions were about refreshing and stuff. Have another computer, linked up the two computers, and screen shared all day. It worked fine. Okay, so let's hope that that works here. I'm going to switch over. Okay, that looks like it was pretty good. Oh, there's one thing I want to talk to you about. We are screen sharing now, right? Today we got it done. Okay. Uh, here's today. I always put 2 to 6. We never go to 6 o'clock. It's not necessary. We have synchronous and asynchronous material. I am old enough to have a COVID vaccine shot, but they haven't called me. I've got myself on the list. I've had it there forever. I think they want to skip me for some reason. But what happens if I get the call and it's for the day and time that we meet? Do you think I'm going to go or not?
I think you'll go. You'll just push back our time instead of starting at 2, start at 4 and do 4 to 6.
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly how it work, but I think I have an idea. The trouble is pushing back the time. If they send me to Disneyland instead of Soka, if they send me to Disneyland, oh my God, it's so far, it's so awful. I used to work at Disneyland. We used to call it the Tragic Kingdom. It had really bad memories, but I'll go there if I have to. Okay, here's what's going to happen. Let's say Thursday it hit, and they called me say Wednesday morning, and this made appointment for Thursday. Well, that's fine. That gives me enough time. I'd email you all, if I could, because I've got you all on one list. But this course is allowed to run asynchronously and synchronously. I've only run it synchronously. In other words, I'm here, you're here, we're here together. We have the material at the same time. Okay. But 2 semesters ago, it ran asynchronously. And that meant the individual, you, okay, uh, would come on to the modules. You would skip. You would skip Confer-Zoom. In your case, you might go to Confer-Zoom and find there is no Confer-Zoom. There's nothing scheduled. Okay, that's if that happened that I was had to be gone. I would certainly try to email you too. But you just come here, okay, and you have dates. One date I'm behind on, and you know, oh, you can see these now, but you can't see them at home yet. You have dates and assignments, and you just go through them without me reading them to you. Okay. Of course, that means I can't answer anything for you until you write me an email or wait till the next time and ask me questions. How often is this going to happen? Just once. I don't think anybody's going to get a second shot. Okay. And in the event, then so if this happened for Thursday, you'll want to come down on the 28th, okay, and finish the material. And hopefully I have the practice modules set up. If not, it'll be for the next Friday as always. It's there already. It's absolutely there already.
Charlie, I had a quick question.
Yes.
So there will be a practice quiz for every single week leading up to the exams.
As you get closer to the exam, there's more practice quizzes. Sometimes as many as 4 practice quizzes.
Okay, and none of those go to the final grade, just the lecture games and the practicums, right?
That's correct. No, they don't count against you. So there's no reason not to do them, to learn from them. Okay.
Awesome. The first week was really helpful.
Okay. Okay, so here we are. This is the second week that we're in. And I want to, by this Thursday, finish the second week. But we have a trailer. Okay. I don't see it. Here it is. Okay, we haven't done this lecture on ossification, so I'm behind. So you're not the only ones, a few of you, that are behind. And you got to catch up, and I got to catch up. Okay, so I'm going to do this lecture on ossification. So far, we've had a lecture on introduction, and that meant directional terms. Okay, and then we had a lecture on joints. Now we're going to do on ossification, which is the formation of bone from cartilage or fibrous templates.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we studied all like the bones in the skull last week. Are we expected to memorize all those by the end of the week, or like, cause like I know some of them right now, but I don't know all of them. But should I know all of them?
I don't want to say should, okay? I wish you could, okay? That'd be better, okay? But eventually, you do need to know them all by the time we have the practicum, okay? It will always take longer for the skull. It always does, okay? We can also review the skull for those that want to someday, today or Thursday, after we finish the other material. But you must, the idea is if you want 100% on the practicum, which is always the goal, you've got to know them all. Didn't want to hear that, huh?
I mean, okay, when is the first practicum?
Oh, now you're gonna send me to the syllabus?
I can look myself. You don't have to.
I know you can. It's not yet anyway. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ossification. Ossification, it's the transformation of fibrous or cartilaginous templates into bone. The word template scoots by some people. They don't ask a question about it and they don't know what it means. Well, most of you do know what it means. Template is something you build upon or you use as a model. Okay. Templates can be anything from cut out letters that you used to use as a kid to draw with, draw letters of the alphabet. Okay. Or a template can be a sort of a plastic figure, column that you build upon. A template is just a model. Okay. You're going to see some pictures in a moment that'll make that clear. For some people, my explanation probably made it less clear, but we'll take care of that. The process of formation of bone from a template, converting a template, whether it's fibrous or cartilaginous, into bone, takes place at different rates and at different ages throughout the body. There are some templates that stay forever and bone never forms. But when bone does form, it's called ossification. Think about a newborn. You don't often see x-rays of unborn, okay, uh, uh, babies, because it's just not a good idea to x-ray them. But you can see x-rays of newborns or preborns. If there's been a medical complication and the x-ray was necessary, we have them in our collection that you'll have access to. Okay. But you can look inside the womb and see the baby. You can see the skull, you can see the fingers, okay? And they're just starting to look like bone, but they're not bone yet. They're probably cartilage yet. And they have to grow some to get to a larger state to form bone. And they don't finish forming bone. They don't finish ossification until the bone is fully developed. Okay. There's two kinds of ossification: intramembranous ossification, and in a moment, endochondral ossification. Intermembranous. Think about that. Two membranes. Okay. Well, two sheets of glass, two sheets of plastic, the two sides of a pillow without anything inside of the pillow. The intramembranous means between two membranes, and the bone forms in between those two. This is the least common or the less common form of bone ossification or bone formation. It's primarily reserved for flat bones, the parietal bone, the maxilla, parts of the temporal bone, even parts of the jaw, which we consider flat. Now, if you feel any of those bones on yourself, they're not flat. They're sort of rounded or curved. They're still considered flat bones that you'll get in the reading I just gave you. They're considered flat bones because they're so thin compared to their overall size. The flat bone is really quite porous, and it does not display something called the Haversian system. Well, we'll reserve the Haversian system discussion for a couple of minutes here and see that in a moment. Best to remember that flat bones are porous, like have almost bubbles inside of them. Now, intramembranous ossification. A couple of ways of describing it to you. What was your favorite sandwich that you took to school? Anybody have one?
Peanut butter and jelly.
There it is. Okay. Okay, peanut butter and jelly was my favorite, of course. The way we always made it, my mother made it, of course. She put a piece of bread down, put peanut butter on, put some jelly on, and put another layer of bread on. But we're not going to do it that way. Put two pieces of plain bread together. No peanut butter, no jelly in between. Okay. This is cartilage. This is cartilage. Now, take a tube of squirtable jelly. We didn't have those when I was a kid. And squirtable peanut butter. Slip it between the two slices of bread and put the peanut butter and jelly in between the two. That's bone formation. That's bone formation. It's being brought by blood vessels, actually, and enters in between the two membranes. Another way, do any of you sleep? Have any of you slept on a water bed?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Okay, I was gonna wonder if anybody was old enough to even remember a water bed. Okay, now some people here have slept on a water bed, and probably some more who didn't want to answer. How many still sleep on a water bed? You woke up on a water bed this morning. Nobody? Of course not. Horrible contraption. Horrible contraption. You sleep on a water bed, your nightshirt comes up and your skin touches the water bed and you're stuck like a Band-Aid and you have to pull yourself off, and not good. But think of a water bed, okay? It's like a raft and you shoot water in usually from the side, with a hose. And there's a layer at the top, a layer at the bottom, and now the water in between. That's intramembranous ossification. If I can really stretch the analogy there. Okay. Barely visible here. A young person, a baby. Okay. Not a good picture. Okay. I did mention the other day that some of the pictures I had access to were not good. Yeah, good enough, but not good. And somebody, Harmony, offered me a website, and I looked at it, and I'm signed up for it, and I'll take some of those pictures when I need them. I have plenty of really good pictures, but what I was referring to is the fact that in some cases I have pictures that aren't good, and that's when I need a resource like that. Okay, so can you see in this little kid? This is the temporal bone. This is the occipital bone. Those are both flat bones, and those are both formed by intramembranous ossification. Inside of a long bone, you may have porous bone being formed too. That's spongy bone, which is formed by intramembranous ossification. Along the outside, this is compact bone. Compact bone is formed by the other kind of ossification. So your leg, your arm, would be something like this if it were cut lengthwise. The product of intramembranous ossification is spongy bone, but it's also known as cancellous bone. Please, if I bold two terms and tell you they mean the same thing, you need to know both terms. If I think one is not as important, I'll probably not bold it, put it in parentheses. You'll know, but these two are synonyms. Endochondral ossification. This is the most prevalent type of ossification in the body. It forms from a cartilage template or model, and that is surrounded by a membrane called perichondrium. Para meaning around, chondrium meaning cartilage. So around the cartilage makes sense. Now, I'm starting down here. Here's a cartilage template. This is going to be a femur. Okay. Not overnight, that's for sure. Many, many years to come. Here's a cartilage template. And around it is the this doesn't show the perichondrium. This one has perichondrium around it. I can add that. Perichondrium means around the cartilage. As it begins to grow, you see the size difference here. Okay. The thickening membrane on the outside is the same membrane as the perichondrium, but now it is called the periosteum because it surrounds the bone, which is osteum. Perichondrium surrounds the cartilage template. Periosteum surrounds any bone that's growing, no matter how small it still is or how large it's become. If it's growing bone, if it's forming bone inside, surrounded by periosteum. We have more development at both ends. And here's the blood supply coming in. You have to have blood supply to bring nutrients to cause this growth. This area in the center is called the primary ossification center. At the other ends, we have the secondary ossification centers. They don't have them labeled in the same drawing. Moving over, now you have two areas budding off to make the greater trochanter of the femur and the head of the femur. There's a cartilaginous space in white. It was over here too. It's down here too. This is cartilage. Here was the cartilage, but now bone is growing in it. Now bone is growing in it. There is still cartilage though between the secondary ossification center and the primary ossification center. And this primary ossification center and the secondary ossification center is up here. This cartilage is called the epiphyseal plate. Now, if you have gone back and studied your notes, fine. If not, you're going to realize you're going to have to. The epiphyseal plate was listed as a synchondroses on the first day. Synchondroses, a cartilaginous area that does not move. Epiphyseal plate. Let me back up for a second. Okay. This one shows a medullary cavity. You've all seen a dried bone, maybe a bone that, a real one, that a dog's gotten a hold of, had for some time. The center is all eaten out. Okay. That was soft material where blood is formed. This is the medullary cavity. There was a small one over here. There's a longer one, bigger, proportionately over here. This is the medullary cavity, surrounded by compact bone. Compact bone, we often call that hard bone. We're going to look at the compact bone. The compact bone has what we call aversion systems. Spongy bone does not. Okay. Here's the compact bone in a bone that's been cut across. The medullary cavity is here. This is about big enough to put the tip of your little finger into. Over here, the compact bone. And you can pull out or telescope out in your imagination a cylinder, a solid cylinder here, which is called an osteon. Osteon is the functional unit of compact bone. This is the osteon. Now look at here carefully. Lots and lots of dots. They all have a circle around them. Here, circle, 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 circle. These circular areas are all osteons. Only this one has been pulled out for you. Okay. Running through the center of the osteon is a vessel called the Haversian canal. The arrows point in two directions because here, upright, is the Haversian canal running to this osteon. Another one running to this osteon. Interconnecting two Haversian canals is a Volkmann canal. Yes, these were all named after people who discovered them. Now there's a move on to erase the people's names and give them different names themselves. I don't know if I like that idea. These guys put a lot of effort into figuring these out. Okay. So there's the Volkmann Canal going across, joining two Haversian canals. Here's the Haversian Canal up here. Now you can see here some dark spots. I'm going to be referring to those in just a moment, but the better picture. And those are going to be lacuna. Okay, let me go to here. Here's a model. This model has the Haversian Canal, which has an artery and a vein. This is the Haversian Canal. These alternating layers of different colors, what are the yellow and cream? Help me out on the colors. Yellow and cream or yellow and white?
Yellow and white.
Like cream,
Okay.
cream.
Yeah, or you almost thought of as layers of paint. This is a lamella. This is a lamella. This is too. The color means nothing except to show it to you. But between lamella, there are little crypts. These are lacuna. Now here's the label for that. The lacuna is the lifelong resting place of an osteocyte, a bone forming or a bone destroying cell. You have osteocytes that build bone. They're called osteoblasts. You don't need to know that term. And osteocytes that can be the same one that destroy bone, osteoclasts. Your bone is being built up and broken down all of the time. In roughly 11 years, every bone in your body today, right now, will have been reabsorbed and new bone laid down. This is an osteocyte. It spends its entire life trapped in a lacuna. Running from osteocyte to osteocyte, or lacuna to lacuna, either way you want to say it, are these very small vessels called canaliculi. Your bone is really quite porous as far as blood vessels are concerned. Okay, so what do we have here? Osteocyte, that's one. Caniculi, that's two. Lamella, that's three. lacuna, that's 4. Haversian canal, that's 5. And then what is this whole thing? An osteon. In multiple choice fashion, one item at a time, not all 6, counting the osteon. You're going to be asked these as your 5 bonus questions on the practicum. I'm telling you, these are the 5 bonus questions. If you don't do choose not to do the study guides and choose not to do the practice quizzes, you don't get to answer these. You don't get to work on these. They won't be counted. But since you are going to do those, then this is a gimme. This is a gimme.
Could you explain what the lamella are one more time?
Lamellar layers of bone, okay? Like almost like paint that you put on, and then more grow, and then more grow. They don't grow all at the same time. If they did, they wouldn't look like this. This inner layer grows first when the bone is small in diameter, then this one, and so on. However,
Like the rings of a tree.
yes, it does indeed look like the rings of a tree. The only thing is they do not change color, except in this model.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay. When we come back from a more typical break here, I'm going to go into this week's material, and that's down here, number 2, levels of organization. That won't give you any trouble at all. And then cell structure, and then I'll set reserve for Thursday, cellular processes. Okay, but let's take until 3:25. Okay. Okay. Let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I can't believe it. Everybody's here. I mean, everybody is here. Okay. Did you think of any questions on the break? Okay. I can see from the chat, I went too fast for some people on the book. And of course, the solution to that would have been to record it. So I'm not very good at remembering to turn on the record button. So at the very start, somebody shout out, hey, hit record, okay? And we'll be fine. I don't know if anybody listens to these recordings. Well, actually, I do. It keeps a number. I don't know if they really pay attention when they do. And I wonder why anybody wants to hear it twice. But especially important, though, if somebody misses a class. That's for sure. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, Chris.
For patients with fibrodysplasia, how does it turn everything to bone?
The answer to that is I don't know. I really don't know because I'm not a medical doctor. When I was in graduate school, I was at UCI. Anybody going to get transferred to UCI? Oh, Jaden. Think about it, Jaden. I would never recommend it. But you know, things have changed. I started UCI in 1965. In the very first year that it opened, the very first semester that it opened, and it was at that time pretty horrible school. The instructors didn't want to instruct. They would choose from, say, sociology department, one instructor to go and give all of the classes so that the rest of them could stay in and do their research or book writing. And then it would alternate to somebody else the next time. And always you got an instructor who was overloaded with teaching and couldn't catch up on the research that they really seemed to want to do. That wasn't always the case. I had a really good chemistry instructor. His name was Sherry. Yes, it was. Sherry Rowlands. He was a Nobel Prize winner, actually. But most of the instructors, no, were not good in those days. We had one, Dr. Shaw, physicist, and he came and taught us physics. And he was so boring. He put us to sleep. Everybody that could put a recording device up on the front demonstration table, and he would lecture up there. And then they would have one person collect a bunch of recording devices so the people didn't even have to show up at all. And then one of the recording devices, somebody put an explosive in and blew it up in his face. Didn't hurt him, fortunately. But that was it. Nobody was allowed to have the recording devices after that. And everybody was pissed because they had to stay and listen to this guy. Anyway, one of the first things I was taught by my major professor was that if you don't know the answer to a question, getting back to your question, Chris, if you don't know the answer to a question, you say so. Because if you make something up or whatever, they'll find out and they'll never trust you again. So I've never made up an answer. Anything else? Okay. I was thinking a little bit more about what I said about, because I got two uh, two outlines submitted during the break. Two people sent them in. They'll get acknowledgments for that, and so that's helpful. And I hope the rest of you that haven't finished it, since everybody's here, will hear this and please get it done. Don't let it build up on you. But it caused me to rethink about what I said about wanting justice all of the time. Uh, it reminds me of when I was a kid, just to demonstrate how much justice means to me. Uh, when I was a kid, about 5 years old, and lived in Los Angeles, we went down the back alley. I went down there with my sister. She was 4, and the back alley was just a gravel alley, dry grass growing everywhere, horrible, and not a very nice neighborhood. We ran into Kathy, a girl that my sister especially knew, and she said, "Come on, let's play games." What games? What are you playing? Dead grass, you know? Uh, count the stickers. So anyway, Kathy said, "Come on, let's play in her backyard." So we went to her backyard, which had a detached garage and a cabinet built up against the garage wall. And the house, of course, was separate then. Her grass was 2 foot high straw. Literally, it was straw. And she said, "Let's play a game. You put me in the cabinet and put a lock on it and count to 30 and then let me out." What kind of game is that? Well, kids make up games that are stupid. So we did. We locked her in the cabinet for 30 seconds and tried to make fun of it or whatever. And then we let her out. And then she put me and my sister in the cabinet, and we heard it lock for 30 seconds. And at 30 seconds of counting, she didn't come to let us out. She took off. She absolutely took off and locked us in the cabinet. This was not just. And we were screaming our heads off. We were petrified, kicking the cabinet front. And finally, we kicked the cabinet door off. And we look up at the house to the second floor into Kathy's window, and there she is laughing her head off. She's laughing her head off, and we were scared. Is that justice? No, not to a kid, not to anybody. So we left, went home, down the alley, but I had to have my justice. I went back to Kathy's house. Nobody was around. I took with me a metal rod, and I knew there was some oil at the cabinet. I dipped the rod in the oil, and then I lit the incinerator. We had incinerators. We each did, each house had incinerators. At my house, I was in charge of lighting the incinerator. So I had the matches and I lit it. And then I put the rod in, and the rod became a torch. And then I ran around the backyard and lit the whole damn thing on fire. I just lit everything up. So then I took off, of course. Fire engines were coming. My mother said, "Go see what it is." I said, no. What do you mean you don't want to go see what it is? Go see what the fire engine is. No, I don't want to see it. Okay. And I did take a look around, sneaked back down there. The garage was toast, complete toast. The cabinet, of course, was gone. The house was spared, fortunately. So now I had my justice. And worked for me. I didn't know my sister was the same way. My sister was a fanatic on justice too, and I had no idea. She's 4 years old. We got called down to Kathy's house. Kathy was sick. They thought she might die. We went to her room, and it looked like she was ready to die, as far as I could tell. She was very, very sick. She recovered. Okay. 20 years later, or 30 years later, actually, I met my sister in Las Vegas. She lived in Idaho. And she told me about that. And I said, well, what do you know about it? She said, well, I took the oleander branch, a very poisonous plant, and rubbed it inside of the hose that Kathy always drinks from and left it there for her to drink from. So my sister poisoned the kid. You just don't mess with us. Okay. Let me see if I can get the share screen going again. Okay. Are you seeing it?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. I think the good trick here is during the break, just leave it on the screen that you want, and then we don't have to go through all that again. Okay. I want to look at now under week 2. You can read introduction to week 2. That's nothing. No test questions coming out of there. The week 2 discussion. Okay. Please add yourself to the discussion. There was already one person who has answered the question already. Okay, so I don't need to read it to you. The assignment is chapter 6. I can tell you that. Level of organization. Okay, for levels of organization, we're talking about in hierarchy from least complex to most complex. But even the least complex material that we're going to talk about is pretty darn complex. The first thing that we talk about is cells. Generally, they're considered the smallest living organisms or entities, and all cells come from pre-existing cells, and they're composed of one or more cells. The last two statements I've run together, all cells come from pre-existing cells, and all organisms are composed of cells, or at least one cell, like a paramecium, for instance. Okay. The next higher level of organization is the tissue. These are composed of similar types of cells that perform a common function. The word common doesn't mean commonplace or very familiar. Common means here a shared function. Tissues are composed of similar cells that perform a shared function. 4 types of tissues. These aren't hard. And I think the people who miss these kick themselves later on because they realize they weren't hard. The 4 types of tissue. Epithelial tissue. This is tissue that covers or lines. It can cover the body. Then it would be the outer layer of the epidermis. It can cover the throat, the mouth, the nasal cavity. It can coat the lining of every blood vessel in the body. Epithelial tissue covers or lines. Then we have nervous tissue, muscle tissue, and connective tissue. Connective tissue includes the bone that we're looking at now, the blood within it and throughout the body, adipose, cartilage again, and plenty of other connective tissues. Here are the 4 types of representation. Here's epithelial, nervous, muscle, and connective. When you have tissues that work together to perform a common function, you have an organ. Examples of the organs. Generally in class, I ask people to shout out examples, but the one that they can always do easiest is the organ. Stomach, for instance, pancreas, heart, skin, liver, brain. I only got 6 organs there. There's plenty more. Which of those 6, which 2 of those 6 do you imagine uses up the greatest amount of energy in a day?
The liver and the heart and the brain. Oh, sorry. The brain and the heart.
You got 3 of them there, okay, and 2 of them are the correct ones, but you haven't hit the correct pair. So it's the liver and the brain. The liver and brain, they never stop. They never stop. Okay. Oh, hey, just read the next line. An organ system is a group of organs that together perform a common function. So organ systems split here on this 2 pages include nervous system, muscular system, integumentary system, which is the skin, nails, and hair, digestive, respiratory, reproductive, lymphatic, circulatory, endocrine, and urinary system. If you don't recognize these right off the bat, these are the ones that I told you not to bother outlining from the 12 black diagrams the other day, okay? Because we will be going through all of these systems one at a time. And when you put all of these systems together, then you end up with the organism. Okay. Sometimes I get to one of my least favorite topics. I don't want to do it. I stall. I try to think of a reason not to do it. But you know what? If I do it, I'll feel so much better to have it done with. That's cell structure. You have all had cell structure. You've all had at least Bio 20 or a year of high school biology. You have all had this. And it's going to seem to a lot of people like, well, why are we doing it again? You're doing it again because unfortunately people get to where they are on the basis of what they once knew and have now forgotten. Too many people take the quizzes that we have in this class and the portion on cell structure, they just flop. They just fall on their face. And why is that? Because they didn't study it because they thought they remembered it. And apparently, unfortunately, they didn't. So pay enough attention to the topic that you can get a good score. Cell structure. Okay. Now, we'll get into what I call the real anatomy right after we finish this, next topics. Okay, so this is an idealized picture of a cell. No cell actually looks like this, okay? But every cell has some components that you see here. First off, the nucleus. The nucleus is filled with, besides fluid, it's filled with the DNA. All your DNA is in there. Okay. I'm not going to make it harder than we need to. The fluid inside is called nucleoplasm, but you don't see that anywhere on this page. And if you don't see it on this page, it won't be asked. Okay. In the center is a darker spot that we find in human nuclei. This is the nucleolus. Some people pronounce it differently, but nucleolus is correct. The nucleolus has inside of it the ability to form tRNA. Now, I'm not going to get into biochemistry. Okay, that's not the purpose of the course. I will tell you, however, tRNA is one of the things that's necessary to produce proteins. Okay. My computer's going crazy telling me I need a driver. So go away. Okay, so nucleus, I want you to know that. Nucleolus, I want you to know that. Okay. And then coming out from it, what this looks like a seating chart, doesn't it? Where you Ticketmaster, you pick your seat. These are all interconnected, even out to here, even out all the way to the edge. Okay. This is the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum can be rough or smooth. This is like hollow tubules, and this is the rough one, the little dots on it. Here's the name, rough endoplasmic reticulum. Out here, where the roughness ends, is smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The main function of rough endoplasmic reticulum is to produce proteins. It houses these little dots that you see along the length, the roughened projections. Those are ribosomes. You don't see ribosome on this sheet, so it will not be asked. I'm just telling you. Here's the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. It takes some of the protein that is produced by the rough endoplasmic reticulum and moves it forward and concentrates it in a structure here called the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus is not singular. There's not just one in the cell. There are many in the cell. The endoplasmic reticulum and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum is not just in a concentric circle around the nucleus. It comes out towards you and me. It's like spaghetti filling a deep colander, okay, coming out in all directions. The Golgi apparatus produces what's called Golgi vesicles here. These are released. They have a lot of proteolytic enzyme. Where'd they get that? Protein, enzyme, interchangeable. Proteolytic enzyme coming here and accumulating here. What do they need the proteolytic enzyme for? To break down protein. What do they need to break down protein for? To eat. And they will come and attack and swell in size by taking up water and attack and become this structure here called the lysosome. Well, they did us a favor, at least by putting 2 lysosomes in here, but there are lots and lots of lysosomes. These lysosomes look for anything that has food in it that is not part of the cell and devour it. In older people, some believe that they actually begin devouring the cell that they're in and hastening deterioration. Okay. Here's the membrane. This is called the cell membrane or the plasma lemma. Here they've called it plasma membrane. This is so important. It allows material to come into the cell. It allows some material not to get in. It allows some to get in, but never to get out again. Okay. It controls the traffic. It also sucks in fluid and solid debris. Fluid we can understand. Solid debris might be like a red blood cell that has broken down. We'll come back to this one. Here's the plasma membrane. It's sucking in. This takes energy. And what's it getting? It's getting mostly fluid. Whereas over here, it's getting solid, like a red blood cell or a bacterium. When the cell membrane sucks in fluid, it's called pinocytosis. When it takes in solid material, it's called phagocytosis. If you've ever seen a golf ball, and I know you have, it's got dimples all over it. Anybody know how many? Don't tell me if you do. I had a guy in the class who knew that there were 236 dimples on a golf ball. And I couldn't believe it, so I counted them and he was right. And I don't know why anybody would want to know that. Of course, I also don't know why anybody would want to count to see if he was right. I did. The dimples in a golf ball are like the surface of a cell, and the membrane is constantly sucking in. And sometimes all they catch is water, and sometimes they catch solid. If they only catch fluid, it's brought in as a vacuole. If they catch solid, it's brought in as a food vacuole. But you, again, do not see that term here. This structure is a mitochondrion. They're showing several of these. That's nice, but there's more than that. Mitochondrion are not always pickle shaped or little sausage shaped. They can be many, many different shapes, from spheres to the letter Y to the letter J, almost as many shapes as chromosomes have. But they're invariably shown as a double-walled sausage shape. The mitochondria breaks down food that it receives out of the cytoplasm, okay? And it forms ATP or NADH P2. These are both forms of energy that the rest of the cell and the mitochondria itself can use. This little centriole, we'll be talking about it later, so not worry too much about it. We'll split in half, one half going here, one half staying here, and it will set up a fibrous apparatus called a spindle fiber in getting ready to split the cell apart in regular cell division. So for now, the centriole sets up the spindle apparatus. Now I have definitions for you. Okay, so let's just go through them. The cytoplasm is the area of the cell outside of the nuclear membrane. This is the cytoplasm. The nucleoplasm is the area of the cell inside the nucleus. Chromatin, I didn't talk about. It's dispersed genetic material within the interphase nucleus. This is the material I called DNA, which it is, but it's in a dispersed form. We call that chromatin. The nucleolus we talked about as the formation of tRNA. The nuclear membrane is a double membrane. The centriole, organelles from which the spindle apparatus arises during cell division, is the centriole. Endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. We saw those, I think enough, I'm not going to go back to those. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The Golgi apparatus, sometimes that's also called the Golgi body. The vacuole was the fluid that the cell brings inside of itself. The lysosome, the structure filled with enzymatic material to break down the food vacuoles or to break down this vacuole. This one would probably hit this one first. They just roam around. There's no thought to anything. They just move around looking for anything. The lysosome we just showed, the mitochondrion we got through with a moment ago, and here's phago and pinocytosis. We'll have an opportunity to review all of this again, but piece by piece instead of rapidly when we talk about the division of the cell. Okay, the next item here is what I showed you earlier. I held it up for you, vertebra, ribs, sternum, so that we would know where in the body, where in the book, what figure it is. You don't need it. It's nice to have when you're working with your book, but you don't need it right now because I have mine. So I want to go to this last part here. Okay. Now, if you have your book, it will be handy. Okay, obviously. I'm gonna have to get some light. Hang on. Okay, so for a while here, we'll be in lab. Okay, we're going to look at the vertebra, typical vertebra, which is figure 7.2. Somebody please tell me when you get to that page and you see that this is on it. Anybody gotten to this page?
You said figure 7.2, right?
Yes, it doesn't matter what page actually. It's figure 7.2.
In my book, it says it's just like a structure of the brain, or sorry, of the skull.
Yeah, same with my book as well. I'm just seeing the skull for 7.2.
Oh, that's too bad.
I think it's 7.20.
Well, yes, you're, oh, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. It's 7.20. I was thinking of a math class where I don't need that last zero. Try 7.20.
Yeah, I see that. I have it on page 173, 7.20.
Okay. The page may not be the same for everybody, but take a look at page 173 if you've got the book. Who doesn't find this there?
For the 9th edition, it's on page 7, or it's on page 205.
Okay, so obviously we're not going to worry about page numbers, but it's 7.20.
Yes, mine is 7.20. I see it.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to do this on the screen here first, okay? And then on Thursday, I'll have you looking at me and I'll use the bone box that I have here, okay? So let's take a quick look at this. It's also kind of easier to point out things this way than it is holding up one vertebra. Okay, this is a typical thoracic vertebra. Okay, now we had axial bones. Total number of axial bones includes the vertebra, and that's 80 altogether. Okay. We have 12 thoracic vertebrae. They run down your back. Those are the vertebrae that if you were leaning over riding a bicycle bareback, you might look like a stegosaurus. Okay? And so here they are. You can always tell a thoracic vertebra because the back tail, called the spinous process, dives pretty sharply down. This is a superior view over here. This is obviously a lateral view. The body is the first thing on your sheet. Here's the body. Remember how we put our hand around our mandible? Well, this is smaller than that, but it's the same idea. This whole thing is the body, and it's solid in the thoracic vertebra. Going down the back, posterior side is the spinous process. Here's the spinous process over here. Look over on the left-hand side. We'll start with the spinous process and call that 6 o'clock. I want you to move over to 8 o'clock. This is the transverse process. The name transverse process is on the other vertebra. This is transverse, and okay, back up to 6 o'clock, go to 7 o'clock. The smooth area at the back between these two processes. This is the lamina. The lamina. Spinous process, lamina, transverse process. Come forward to 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And where I have the arrow here or here, this is the pedicle. From 3 o'clock to, from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, it's this whole area here. And that again is the body. Okay, follow with me. I'm going to go from 6 o'clock around the clock. Spinous process, lamina, transverse process, pedicle, body, pedicle, transverse process, lamina, and back to the spinous process again. This structure here, poking upward, is a superior articular facet. It's also known as the superior articular process. Let's look at it over here. A couple bunny ears. Here they're calling it superior articular process. And then it has a flattened face, which is the facet. This is the facet which we pointed out over here. But the facet's on one side, sort of like a hand and the palm of the hand. This will articulate with the inferior articular process of the vertebra above it. It has its own inferior articular process right down here, which can't be seen in the other diagram. The area that might fit a small person's pinky finger, make this a ring. This is the vertebral foramen. The spinal cord normally fits through there. Not the entire spinal cord, of course, just a section. The entire spinal cord runs from the brain down to L, meaning lumbar 2. Lumbar 2. It doesn't go all the way to your tailbone, but the spinal cord takes up more than this space. It takes up the same vertebral foramen with the vertebra above it, above that. So here's a concept that seems to bother people a little bit. It's the spinal canal. The spinal canal is the sum total of all the vertebral foramina that the spinal cord runs through. So the spinal cord is a circular opening or hollow all the way from cervical vertebra 1, C1, down to L2. Some books, including yours, also include the spinal canal in the sacrum. When we get there, we'll point that out. Now, there's one thing that we didn't talk about on the list that I have, and that's transverse foramen, because the thoracic vertebra that we're looking at here does not have that structure. Okay. The transverse foramen is unique to cervical vertebra. We have 5 different types of vertebra. Those in your neck are the cervical vertebra. Then you have, and there are 7 of those. Then you have 12 thoracic vertebra. You have 5 lumbar vertebrae, the largest ones. And then you have 1 sacrum and 1 coccygeal vertebra. The total number is 24 in the adult. This is a cervical vertebra, a pair. It happens to be the very first one and the second one. We can abbreviate these C1 and C2. We abbreviate all of them. C1 fits underneath your skull. Remember the occipital condyles from a couple days ago? The occipital condyles fit here and here on top of cervical vertebra 1, C1. C1 is also known as the atlas. You do need to remember that. Why is it the atlas? It allows us to nod our head yes and no. If you can imagine the skull on top of this, you're looking forward right now. This is posterior. This is superior. This is the transverse process and transverse process. And there's an extra hole. This is the transverse foramen that we only find in the cervical vertebra. It's one way of knowing instantly it's a cervical vertebra. The vertebral artery runs down the neck, protected in this structure, and nerves do as well. C1 or atlas does not have a body. Okay. No body. Okay. Why not? Because a characteristic of C2 right below it juts up into the area where the body would have been. This is the dens. This is upright. Imagine sticking your thumb straight up. Okay. That thumb sits right in here, and this makes this vertebra C2 to be called the axis. It's the axis because it allows you to look right and to look left and pivot on this structure called the dens. It's also known as the odontoid process, but it's not a term I have given you, not a term you have to remember. This is the spinous process, tiny spinous process for C1, a little bit bigger for C2, and beginning to fishtail. looking at my sheet, I would be at figure 7.22. 7.22. Not in our book. They do show the C1 and C2, but they don't show the next item on our sheet, and that's the vertebral prominence. Vertebral and prominent. Prominent, outstanding, noticeable. Feel down the back of your neck to the bump at the base of your neck. You know where I'm talking about. The bump at the base of your neck is your 7th cervical vertebra, and it is nicknamed the vertebral prominence. It doesn't show in your book unless you have a different version and got lucky. The dens, however, should show C1 and C2. We'll go back for a second to the thoracic vertebra. This time in table 7.2, not figure, table. We're going to look for the facet. The facet, we already found the articular facet, the superior and inferior articular facet. Look at the end of the transverse process on the right. And find transverse costal facet or transverse facet. Okay, lumbar vertebra, figure table again, 7.2, you should already be on it. Find a lumbar vertebra, and you'll notice how bulky this guy is. Okay. The body, if you're using the same picture as I am, it'll be on the left-hand side, the body. Go up to the top, the superior articular process. Go straight through to the bottom, the inferior articular process. Go to the back, the spinous process. Okay. Figure 7.23, figure. Okay, we start off in our study guide. If you don't have this study guide, just go back when we're finished and click on the vertebra, ribs, and sternum and download it. You can either download it and keep it separate on the computer, or you can print it out. First, we're looking for the apex. The apex is here, where the black star is. You can see a triangle roughly, and the point of the triangle is the apex. The base is across the wide side, right here. I'm on the posterior side right now. And being on the posterior side, I want to name these correctly, these holes. There's 4 pairs of holes. These are the posterior sacroforamina. We do have nerves. We do have nerves coming out of there. Those nerves do come off of the spinal cord, but the spinal cord ended a few inches higher. But it splits and sends fibers out through these openings. Posterior sacral foramina. We'll go down to just above the star. That's the sacral hiatus. Okay, sacral hiatus is shown here on this page. I'm going to add it. It is shown in the diagram. Here's where the sacral canal at the top begins. And fibers come in through there, and they flare out. And many continue on. The exit right here through this tunnel is the sacral hiatus. The top of the tunnel, this ridge here, is usually quite corrugated, roughened. This is the mid-sacral crest. I've written it the way I like it, mid-sacral crest, but some people call it middle sacral crest or median sacral crest. It's always sacral crest though. This wing out here is the ala, and it will be on the other side and the anterior as well. On the anterior side, which is here, these 4 pairs of holes are now the anterior sacral foramina. It's not that they're getting a new name just because they're on one side rather than the other. There are actually 8 holes on the posterior and 8 matching holes on the anterior. Go to the top, above the base, and we have a ledge. This is the sacral promontory. It shows just a little bit on the front here, but it's not labeled. The sacral promontory is important because in childbirth, you have to have enough room for the kid's head to fit through. And that's one of the obstructions that you've got to overcome, the sacral promontory. This structure here is unlabeled, but knowing that it was the ala from the other side, it's the ala, the ala. When we turn to the lateral view, we have the auricular surface attached to the ala. In other words, this surface here is the auricular surface. It's called auricular because to some people it reminds them of an ear. The coccyx is down here. It's labeled up here. Okay. Okay. Let's be martyrs for one day, and I won't do that to you again. I want to finish this, and I see that the rest is really not that bad. Okay, so we're closer to the end, way closer to the end of the beginning. I want to look at a rib. Okay, now why a rib is part of the axial skeleton. Okay, it attaches to the vertebra, swings around in front, neither doesn't attach anywhere, or if it does attach somewhere, it's going to be to the sternum. Okay, here's the rib, here's the part that attaches to the vertebra. This is the head of the rib. Remember, I'm going to have real bones for you on Thursday. Here's the head, squeeze in, here's the neck, here's the tubercle. This attaches to the side of the dens. This part attaches to the facet of the transverse process. Again, don't worry about that. We'll see it on Thursday. Okay. Head, neck, tubercle. Remember that this one's a tubercle. And then you have the shaft or body, the whole thing going around. And you'll need to see it as well. An indented inferior part called the groove. The groove. This is the top of your sternum. Okay. If you took your finger at your throat to the point where if you ever had to have a tracheotomy, it might be done. Okay. You feel that crease at the top, that's the jugular notch. The jugular notch. Where your two clavicles fit in are here and here. Clavicle, clavicle. We'll see the clavicles when we get to the appendicular skeleton. The upper shield-like, badge-like portion is the manubrium. I'm on figure 724, sorry. You do not need to know the sternal angle. Underneath the manubrium is the body. And then we have the xiphoid process at the end. You can feel your own xiphoid process, I know you have. You don't want to break that because that's the attachment for your rectus abdominis muscle. And giving CPR, you're taught right away to avoid busting that. Okay, manubrium, body, the xiphoid process. Okay. Clavicular notches, jugular notch. Here we see it again. Manubrium, body, xiphoid process. Here are the ribs coming around, the body or shaft of the ribs. How many ribs have attachments? Well, there's 12 ribs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 have their own attachment to the manubrium. Wait a minute, there's more, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, 8, 9, and 10. Look how they piggyback on each other, and then they piggyback on number 7. You have 7 pairs only of true ribs. 7 pairs true rib. Okay. You have 5 pairs of false ribs that don't have their own attachment. 5 pairs, pair 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. 11 and 12. They do not have their own attachment. In addition, pairs 11 and 12 have no attachment. They're called floating ribs. You have true ribs, false ribs, floating ribs. 7 pairs, true ribs. Next 3, false ribs. Next 2 are floating ribs. There's stories going around that aren't true, that Cher had her floating ribs removed to make her waist thinner. But apparently that's not true. However, other people certainly have. Okay. You don't need them much for breathing, they're just there. Okay, let me see. Sternum, clavicular notch. Oh. Okay. Did I happen to tell you about the guy that argued with me that men only have 23 ribs?
No.
No. Okay. Very first practicum that we ever had was on bones. And one of the questions, a side question, was how many ribs people have, you know? And we thought, oh, that's just a giveaway. Well, there got to be something easy. And, you know, we were expecting that they would get 12 pairs or 24. And this one guy came up to me after class, said, I don't see why I missed that. I know there's 23 ribs, you know, there's got to be only 23 ribs. And I said, where are you getting that? I sort of cautiously. He said, it says so in the Bible that uh, God took one of Adam's ribs to make Eve. I said, anyway, he was adamant about it, but then I asked him, let's assume you're right. God took one of Adam's ribs, leaving Adam with 23. How many did Eve have? Well, presumably 24. How about Cain and Abel? How many do they have? Kids? I don't know, maybe 24. I said, see what happens if your father gets a finger cut off. Are you born without a finger? You know. So then he realized he can lose a rib from the father and not lose it from the rest of the world, from those of us. Okay, we are done for today, and I'm going to back out to see if you have any questions, but you can back out at any time. And
I have a question for the practice exams. Can you make them available earlier than later? Just because if some of us work on the weekends, like in restaurants or whatever, we have like a full weekend pretty much ahead of us. Would that be okay? Or do you just want it like mandatory open up on Friday?
You know, the problem is I don't want to open up earlier because they're already made. I mean, there's nothing for me to do. Uh, but so why do I not want to do it? I don't want people looking at it. And it's not you I'm talking about. I don't want somebody taking the practice exam before they're ready. I want them to study first. You know, I can do that. I can open it up, but it's going to hurt people.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you want the practice exam early, email me and I'll send it to you. Okay. Well, I admire your stick-to-itiveness. Why is everybody still here?
I was waiting till somebody else left.
You guys are crazy. No, stick around if you've got a question, especially if you don't want others to hear. You may have to really wait to be the last one, or you can email me or whatever you'd like, you know. But I got to where I wanted to be today, and I'll finish off the week on Thursday. Okay. So, okay, Anna.
So for the week 2 assignment, I saw that how we submit it, under submission, it says go to modules, then click the link for the assignment, and then you'll be able to upload a file or text. So for the week 2 assignment, you want us to upload it in either a file or text in the submission box, or would you like us to email the assignment?
Okay, you're using our words interchangeably a bit. Assignment always refers to chapter outlines. Okay, that I would like to have emailed.
Okay.
Last regular email. Last semester I only took inbox, and it was working great, you know, and I got them all in one place. But no, it doesn't work this semester. It's not forwarding them from school to me. So I need you, please, to put them in a regular email. The school wants me to use inbox, but if it doesn't work, I'm not going to use it. Inbox does work for messages, and I know it does have a spot there for attachment. And you can think you're sending the attachment. It's going off to Never Never Land. Okay, so just a regular email.
Okay.
It's easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Have a good day.
Okay, Nessa.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I had a quick question. You had said that when looking at the sacrum, the nerves would go in through the sacral canal and then come out the foramens on the side. I was wondering if there are like holes on the inside where the nerves come out of, or like how they're
No, there's holes. There's holes all the way through. Those nerves can come inside and outside.
Okay,
I didn't say that.
From the posterior and anterior
Right.
sides, do they just kind of
actually most of them come from the anterior side.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay.
Alrighty, well, thank you. You have a good rest of your night.
You too.
I have a question about the outlines, because I emailed them to you yesterday, but I never got an email back saying you got them. So
That's
I was
right.
wondering if I sent them to the right email.
I don't know. Do you know the email?
Yes, let me check. When It just says to Charles Harrison.
No, you probably used the inbox. What do you use for email?
Gmail.
Okay, that's good. Use Gmail again. Don't let it say to Charles Harrison, because it might be wrong. Type out my address once, okay? You can type out the school address. It's easier. C. Harrison at saddleback.edu.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll definitely let you know if I get them. And you're not going to be here tomorrow, right?
No, on Thursday.
That's
Yeah.
what I meant. Yeah. That's okay.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.